Despite people thinking that was, let's say, the worst thing that I was going to do to it, little did they know that I had plans to do many miles, track days, Nürburgring, Renntech system headers through. Everybody has that one car that stands out to them as their dream car. For me, that has always been the Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG Black Series. The SLS AMG, always, just everything about it, from the engine, the 6.2 V8, to the gull-wing doors opening up, to the marketing campaigns, to the video they made, the advert where the car did a full 360 around the tunnel with Michael Schumacher then stepping out of it at the end. Everything about that car, iconic, linking back to the 1950s Mercedes 300 SL gullwing. It just screamed that this is epic. At the time, I would have loved one, sadly outside of my affordability range, but then the Black Series came out, and the Black Series took what was already this incredible car to me, made it even more dynamic, even wider, even more badass in how it looks. Just a really striking car, but never at the time, back in 2013, did I think it might be possible one day I would actually own one myself, which I'm now lucky to be able to say that I do. In many ways, when buying cars to create videos, to shoot content, to share across social media, there's always a consideration for how will people respond to that car? Will it be successful? Is there mass appeal? But the SLS was always one I wanted to chase down for me. That was the car that, if other people didn't like it or didn't like what I thought I was going to do with it, that's their problem. This is the car that I wanted to own for the whole of my life. This is the car that I had to somehow make happen. 6 years earlier, I had filmed in a showroom in Stuttgart. I had actually been to visit to film something else extraordinarily cool, a Ferrari F12 Enlargo by Novatec. I recently actually met up with that same F12 Enlargo with my SLS, the two cars that had been together, well, back in 2014. So I was there at the showroom to film the F12, to go out for a ride in it with the most ridiculous exhaust note, just a crazy, crazy thing in every possible way. But sitting on the lower level of the showroom, amongst some incredible cars, was this SLS Black Series, actually in a wrap design named the Ring Police. It looked like an American police car with white doors against a satin black wrap around the exterior of the car. And I think it had appeared at a couple of different events and things, and originally been featured at a motor show as part of one of the German breakdown company's activities. But I didn't obviously ever think at the time that the future might go the direction it did. So when I then found this car for sale, to me, it was almost a calling that it had to happen. That had to be the one that I would go for. Unfortunately, the dealership Schalklisse near to Munich in Germany did me a very nice deal to make it possible. And although the timing wasn't ideal, coming just before all of the travel restrictions that impacted the world in early 2020, it was something that we got locked down, made it happen. And I actually drove with my G63 with a trailer behind it, all the way from London to Munich, about 15 hours, with a stop overnight in Stuttgart on the way, to go and pick the car up and bring it straight back through a snowstorm. As it happens, we were driving in the G-Wagon. I was thinking, here's my SLS Black Series in the trailer behind, and I'm driving at about 30 miles an hour, 50 kilometers an hour through a snowstorm as we go all the way through France, through the night, doing it in one hit to get all the way back, about, I think, 18 hours or so. But that was the car that one day had to happen, and with that link, it was the perfect start. Ultimately, my plans for my SLS Black Series, which I think caused quite a lot of uproar at the time, was actually to completely respray it, to change it, to do what I would have done if I had been fortunate enough to buy one back at the time, back when it was originally introduced. So changing the colours, changing the wheels, adding more carbon fibre to it, with some big plans ahead. Now, there was a bit of controversy because the SLS Black Series is one of only 350 in the world, so arguably perhaps you should keep them completely true. But this was a car that had been used, it had done some track days, it had been to event shows. It was never going to be that ultimate collector's car. And I think for me, it was the perfect, therefore, donor to make into exactly what I wanted to do, which was to respray it into Mystic Blue, a colour that one SLS Black Series had been painted in from new, a delivery mile car. It was actually for sale around the time that I bought mine, but for significantly higher being delivery mileage, and also out in the Middle East, so it would have incurred significant taxes to bring it back over to Europe, whereas a car from Germany could be moved to the UK prior to the Brexit situation without any stress, really. It was quite an easy process to get it registered. So respraying the car, changing the wheels to make them silver, almost this elegant combination on a very brutal and aggressive car. But despite people thinking that was, let's say, the worst thing that I was going to do to it, little did they know that I had plans to do many miles, track days, Nürburgring, Renntech system headers through. It was not going to be a standard SLS Black Series, and to be honest, that whole story I've created around it, how personal the car is to me, is what makes it a permanent keeper. I'm going to be keeping a hold of that car forever. When I bought the car, initially it had about 6,000 miles on the clock, but being a German car, of course, that was 10,000 kilometers. But one thing to consider from my side at the time is that I planned to drive it a lot around Europe, but also to bring it over to the US. Unfortunately, travel restrictions prevented that from happening. But knowing that I was going to use it in left-hand drive countries, I wanted a left-hand drive car. And the reason as well for avoiding a very low mileage car is that it's much easier to move a car between countries in Europe when they've got more than 6,000 kilometers, when they're considered used effectively. So you can move the car from one country to another. You don't have to double pay the taxes. It just makes life a little bit easier. So the car very quickly accumulated more miles. While I say this, obviously it went first to be resprayed. That process took 2 months or so, letting the paint settle, applying paint protection film. But as soon as it was ready, and as soon as it was possible as well to get back on the road, the miles started climbing like no other car I've owned. In about 5 months, I had put 12,000 miles onto my SLS Black Series, which is more than I think most of those cars around the entire world have ever done. And I went and did it in 5 months, and this will not be the end either. It's having a bit of a hibernation at the moment, just taking it easy, but the adventures will begin again. That car will do many, many miles. Who knows? Maybe one day it will do 100,000. The biggest question, which is always the case when you buy your dream car, does it live up to the hype? Absolutely. This car is everything that I hoped it was going to be. Sometimes you go out and drive a car that you think, or you always thought, was going to be incredible, but you get behind the wheel and it's just a little bit of a disappointment. The SLS, over the years preceding my purchase, I'd actually driven a couple of them, maybe 3 different cars, including the Mercedes factory car on 2 occasions, and each time I'd step back into it, after the first time, I got back in thinking, oh, maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe I've, thought this car is so much better than it actually is, and this time's going to be the reality hitting home, and it's not going to make any sense. And every time I got back into one, it was like, this thing is just amazing. And getting back into my own, I basically made the commitment to respray it before I knew what it was going to be like, and how this was going to turn out, and whether I was going to perhaps regret the purchase. But no, not in any possible way. The sound of that glorious engine, it was one of the last Mercedes or AMG cars to feature the 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8, and it's just glorious. Combine it with the 7-speed dual clutch, the way it shifts, and especially now thanks to having the Renntech headers fitted, it's just a glorious, glorious thing to drive. A feeling of being sat right back to the rear axle, but you can open the doors upwards. You can even reverse it Lamborghini style, sitting on the side door sill as you tuck the car backwards. It's just everything I hoped.
Premier Financial Services has been a sponsor of VINwiki for the last 4 years, and we can't thank them enough for their support, and we love them for that, but also because their simple lease truly is a tremendous product in the world of exotic car financing. They allow you to minimize your payment, minimize your down payment, take all the tax advantages that are available for a lease, while still giving you the ability to move in and out of cars and accumulate equity. So they structure it in a very unique way that's hugely advantageous, gives you a lot more buying power, and their customer service is absolutely incredible. So we love Mitch and their team for their continued support of the channel. We thank them for that, but please visit them at the link in the description below and find out how easy it is to buy your dream car through Premier Financial Services.